By no means is this an attack on you, Charleston, or the few committed, loyal fan base that you've accumulated. Um, you and I have had a phone conversation. I'm the author of the book When Black Boys Are Left in the Dark. When Black Boys Are Left in the Dark. I'm the author of that, Harry Saffold Jr. My phone number starts out with 470. You and I have had a conversation. I reached out to you. You made mention that you would hit me up when you're in the Atlanta area. I never heard back. And I get it, a lot of people have cast insults towards you, threats, etc. You are a likable guy. You are a controversial guy. You are an informative individual. Because as people, we possess dual characteristics. You that. But I think what people are arriving to as far as perception of you is that you dismiss hip-hop characters and push your character to the forefront. So in essence, people are like, do we embrace the character or do we not? You and I have a lot in common. And I shared that briefly because it was a brief phone call between you and I. Basically, I'm an artist, I'm a writer, and I reached out to you because I wanted to be a part of your program, reaching out to the youth. I'm a male sex abuse survivor. I was sex abused when I was a 10-year-old boy in a religious environment. The first time. The second time was by a neighbor. And by the time I turned 12, I said, well, this shit is uncomfortable. Being a victim is uncomfortable. So from my young adolescent mind frame, I said, well, I got to be the opposite of a victim. So I started acting out. And long story short, I went to prison at the age of 19. My crime involved a shooting. I don't shoot for moving automobiles. My crime involved me going in the house and impregnating that boy with gunpowder. As a 19-year-old, my mentality was you don't, guise yourself with an automobile. You pull up and you do what you got to do. And that's what I did. So I was confined from the age of 19 to the age of 32. And while confined, being in prison for that length of time, the administration suggested that you get your GED if you don't have it, get you a trade if you don't have it. So I obliged. I entered trade school. And the trade that I registered for was upholstery, dealing with furniture, fine furniture, some of the shit that you see in executive offices and government offices. And our instructor was a guy named Mr. Walker. This Caucasian male stood about 5'2", so he felt some kind of way. He had something to prove. And I'm going to make this, a minimum as possible. But there were times when, because of his complex, his height, and the fact that he was outnumbered by minorities, a lot of African-American males, we were convicted felons. Sometimes Mr. Walker would come in there and he'd act an asshole. He'd show out. Find reasons to rant. And at the time, I must have been about 21 years of age. And here I am in the midst of other 20-something-year-old black men, African-American males. And there would be times when, of course, after he rant, he would want to give us a life lesson. We want to talk about life. But because a lot of us as black males, young black males, had lost respect for Mr. Walker, when he started to talk about life, shit that we were going to be facing when we go out here in society, they would walk out. Some would head to the restroom. Some would go out and smoke a cigarette. But I felt it'd be necessary. Sit there and see what he got to talk about. At a young age, in my 20s, I had learned to separate the message from the messenger. Yeah, he's an asshole. But this boy about to give us something, and I'm about to tune in. One day, Mr. Walker spoke about how he attended the Talladega racing. Him and his significant other, they found a spot in the bleachers. They had their drinks, their food, and the racers took off. Drivers took off. And they began to wrap around that speed track. Lap after lap after lap, they wrapped around that speed track. And he said in the midst of all the cheering, people who had showed up to see their favorite race car driver win, they come to see him win. He said behind him, he overheard two assholes make this statement. Damn, ain't nobody crashed yet. Charleston, you have built a platform. A lot of people give you that. Some people want to show up and see you win. There are people who want to see you lose. All of these people they're not gang members. Some are not black males. Some are not Latinas. Some are not in the industry. But you got people, man, that want to see you win. But you have to take in consideration that in the midst of them, there are people asking, when is somebody going to blow his fucking brains out on live? When somebody's going to catch him at one of those addresses that he keep throwing up? You're a likable dude, man. Start making this shit right, bro. Start making this shit right, man. You need a know person in your life. Even the president has an advisor. President, I perhaps advise. Whoop, whoop, whoop. You need somebody. You haven't arrived. I haven't arrived. I was sent to prison at the age of 19, 1996, May of 1996. I was released in November of 2008. Here it is, 2022. I'm 46 years of age. At some point, you have to come to the conclusion that you don't have all the answers. There are two forms of deception. There's a deception when somebody can deceive you. But at some point, you will eventually break out of that because you will have the luxury and the time to sit back and think about your interaction with this person. Like, well, damn, this shit don't add up because he or she or they said this, and this ain't what I acquired. That's other folks making an attempt to deceive you. But then you also have what's called self-deception. Self-deception is damn near impossible to break out of because you are convinced that you know it all. It'll be a terrible thing, man, for your children to lose your ass. Terrible thing for your wife that you've been involved with for 3 years to lose your ass. There's an old saying that we return to our original state of being, meaning when we are born, we're birthed, we feeble, and we in need. Change my diaper, feed me. And when we get old, we return to that state. A lot of old people can't drive no more. They need somebody to drive their ass around. Some get in positions where they wipe me, look after me, check in, make sure that the house that I paid for years ago, that my bills are covered. Help me make sure that I'm living in the house I'm keeping up with my taxes if the house is paid for. So we come into this world being feeble and we need, and then we get of age. For those that live long enough, they get of age where they help me remember something. You still need help. And I honestly feel like, bro, that you are returning to your original state. Meaning, you mentioned, you speak highly of your mom. But you was that youth, man, that wanted to be somebody amongst people who was somebody. And that's what led to you being involved in the crime where there's one interview where you mentioned that you told a guy, shoot him. And that you stood over this Caucasian and you saw his facial expression as he gave up the ghost. The need to be important. And you're returning back to that state, bro. You are returning back to the state where you... But see, now it's no more Fort Worth. That's not the platform no more. You wanted to be important amongst a small group of people. Now there's a need to be important amongst a vast amount of people. So you are returning to this state where at one point it's like, whatever I got to do to be recognized. Like you mentioned, juvenile facility, you felt like being a man would be going to prison. What are you trying to do right now? Because you are back at this state where you feel the need to prove something to somebody. You're giving up locations, bro. I caught one of the videos from you where you mentioned to a guy from Chicago, what if you go to Tuka's mom? What if you mentioned, you asked the guy, what if you went to Tuka's mom and said, fuck the King Von? Like, how do you involve her? And then in that same video, somebody called in and said, fuck Tuka's mom. So it's dangerous, bro. It was another video where you mentioned going to meet somebody to, I guess, to give them that weed. You know what I'm saying, Charles? You gave up the location. So what if the individual shows up at the time it was gonna go down? I don't know Dewberry, but Dewberry seemed like a guy that's trying, aiming to make amends with the time that he lost doing time. You are in danger not only yourself, bro, but people around you who you matter to some of these people. Some of these people, you are hilarious. And some of these people, they like, however it go down, they go down. A lot of us are not living to be 200 years of age, bro. 120. Man, make it right. I feel like with your influence and you connecting with the right people, I think you can make amends. Because the shit you doing is no different from Robin Harris standing on the edge of a stage and calling a nigga out about that tight ass suit he wearing. Or D. Ray Davis in this time. Look at this nigga here. Ari Spears. This nigga got a fishbowl for a glass. So comedians have been known for calling niggas out. But when you start to say shit like fuck a dead individual's mom and sister and their children, bro, that's a whole nother ball game, bro. Even Richard Pryor would talk shit to white folk. But that was that individual. You calling out whole cities, whole gangs, man. And you calling out people who have lost somebody. Your wife and your children right now may already be seeing things on social media involving you being some kind of way, like backlash. Make it right, man. Like I said, this video ain't to bash you. And I'm not that guy, that light-skinned dude who on some Steve Harvey shit, fly dude. I ain't been through shit, man. I've been through it, bro. I'm a male sexual abuse survivor. I was sexually abused when I was 10. I was bullied because my self-esteem was shattered. And at some point I said, man, this shit is uncomfortable. I got to become the opposite of a victim. And my objective was to change that. I used to wear big ass clothes, bro, because I didn't want to be sexually abused a third time. And at some point, it's like, you know what? If you want it with me, you can get it. If you want it with me, you gonna get it. And that's when I became that dude on the other side of that pistol. I've been on both sides of the gun, man. I'm a shooter. You can look me up. My crime is not a drive-by. I shot the individual on the inside of that house. But I'm reaching out to you, man, because at some point, like I mentioned, I wanted to work with you, bro, but I don't want it to be no Suge Knight and Tupac situation where one nigga is targeted and another nigga catch the backlash. Hell no. I don't love you that much. I don't know you that much. But you and I have had at least 2 conversations, man. And I mentioned to you, hey, I'm the artist, man. Some of the things you speak about, I can identify with, like most people can. But, man, it's like, you've called out cartels and people in law enforcement. I caught the city council meeting, when you had something to say. Make it right, man. Try to make it right, bro. Dolomite, I get it. Robin Harris, I get it. Richard Pryor, I get it. But you also know, man, that people have been taken some kind of way on social media, and the shit done got bloody. So just make it right, man. This is a guy who, like I said, I see that you mentioned that, you convinced somebody to squeeze the trigger. I squeezed it, bro. Your mom don't need this shit in her life. Shit you doing. And you need a no person in your life. You need a nigga that's willing to be your enemy. This is some shit I heard from Nas years ago, and I usually don't quote hip-hop artists. I so usually don't quote celebrities and I so don't quote them. But Nas said some shit years ago. A friend have to be willing to become an enemy. An enemy is not necessarily a lifelong enemy. Sometimes they're an enemy for a moment. You and Percy was cool at one point. But you got to get to a point, man, where you can embrace some real stuff that people that you trust and you embrace and you allow around you right now. Nigga, you got to allow them people to say shit, bro. You need a no person in your life, man. Somebody need to pull your ass behind closed up like, bro, don't do that shit, man. A no person is necessary in this life. You got men and women and teenagers pushing up daisies because nobody pulled their coattail, bro. You need a no person in your life, Charles. In spite of what you know, there's always room for learning. Get this today.